Hello, everyone. Today, our job is to begin our music project 6 on the blues. Yesterday, we did a lot of setup. So as I give these quick instructions of the setup process, I want to make sure everyone has that done. The first thing we did yesterday was create our project and give it our first name, our last name, and then project 6, which you can see in my title on the screen. Then we were able to add 12 measures to our project because blues always has 12 measures in the blues form. We also chose to add 2 different instruments. The first instrument is some sort of voice instrument. I chose a soprano choir, but some other people chose something different. The second instrument we added was a guitar because guitar is known as a very popular instrument in all the different styles of blues music that we learned about. Our guitar and our singing should be present on our score. If you have a tab like I do here, you can take a moment before you get started today and get rid of it. Remember, you do this by clicking on the instruments, and then you'll see a list of instruments here. Then you click Edit on the instrument you want to adjust, and then you find the tablature settings and turn it off by clicking that little button. If you're not sure how to do this, you can always ask a friend. Many of you should remember how to do that because you did it quite a few times earlier this semester. Once you're finished with those settings, click Done, and then you can see everything is adjusted below. So now it's time for us to put in our chords, which are our basic structure to the music. A chord is a layer of more than 2 notes that are stacked on top of each other and played at the same time. So when we do these chords, we're going to use our keyboards. Take a few moments and pause the video if you need to and set up your keyboard. Again, I want to remind you, you need to plug this into your Chromebook, but then you need to take a moment and check to make sure that the first key over here by the buttons is registering as this C. If you do not have this symbol at the beginning of your staff, it might look a little different, but that's okay. Just make sure you check on a staff with this symbol that note is coming out of your keyboard as a C. If it's not, use the octave buttons or the PB1 and PB2 buttons to adjust those notes so that they're sending to the computer a C for this first white key here. Pause your video now and make sure you set up your keyboard correctly. Are you all good to go? Great. So now we need to take our keyboard and we need to begin adding our chords. The first thing we need to do is get rid of any of the stuff we were just experimenting with to try and get our keyboards ready to go. And we're going to click on our guitar part because that's where we want our notes to go. Not in the piano, not in any other instruments you have or the voice part, just the guitar. Next, I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to turn because I'm a little out of sorts going backwards. And we're going to place our fingers on the first key, the third key, and the fifth key. This is our chord structure that we're going to use over and over again. When we name a chord, we're going to name it by the first key, the bottom key that we play on the piano. That's the 1 of our scale. So that's why we have it labeled here. Our 1 is going to come out, and as we play this set of keys, you should see those chords popping up on your screen. The second chord we're going to need starts on the 4th note of our scale. So as we go up, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to find the 4th note and then do that exact same pattern of putting one finger down, skipping a key, moving our finger to the 3rd key, and then skipping one more and to the 5th key. This is what we call the 4 chord because it starts on the 4th key. Our last chord we need for blues starts on the 5th key. Notice I took all 3 of my fingers and I moved them up at the same time. This is an easy way to create a chord pattern. And once you get your fingers in this pattern, you just have to move them from one spot to another. Again, we start on the 5th key, skip one, then we go to the next key, skip one, and we have our last one. If you play this pattern, it should show you a different chord as well, the 5 chord. We need the 1, the 4, and the 5 for our blues project. Now we've come to the point where we need to use these chords and put them together in a pattern to fill up all 12 of our measures. You can choose to use half notes, quarter notes, or something else. I would suggest starting with quarter notes or half notes just because they'll be easy. Depending on which note you pick, you'll have to hit the chord a number of times to fill up the entire measure. If you start with quarter notes, your chords are going to have to happen 4 times in each measure because we have 4 beats in a measure. This is the pattern I want you to use. I'm going to hold it up on the screen. Pause your video if you would like to see it. You'll notice this pattern is made up of Roman numerals. Roman numerals still represent numbers, but I use them because in music, they represent chords. So when we see Roman numerals, often we immediately will think, oh, that's a chord. Which chord is it? These Roman numerals represent the 1 chord on the top line. Then you will go to the 4 chord twice and the 1 chord twice. That's the second line. And then your final line, you have a 5 chord, a 4 chord, and then 2 more 1 chords. Remember, each of these Roman numerals has to fill up an entire measure. Once you build your guitar part, it should look something like this. Now you have the 4 chord. Here comes the 5. At this point, you can begin in your voice line adding a melody that goes with the chords. This step will take you to a very creative place. We're also going to add lyrics, but we might not finish that today. Take a few minutes and make sure your chords sound like mine, even though your instrument might be different, or your notes might be longer or shorter than my quarter notes. Once you've done that, build your melody and try